Hi, everybody. Hold on one second. I'm going to go ahead and work to show my screen. We can go ahead and get started. All right. Where is my presentation? Hold on one second. All right, can everybody see my screen okay? You can go ahead and either just type in the Q&A or, because I think everybody's on mute. I want to make sure everybody can see everything all right. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And I can't see the Q&A. It's not letting me click onto that. I'm not sure why. But anyway, so some quick housekeeping as we go ahead and dive right into this. Because it is a Zoom meeting, everybody's on mute. I can't hear you guys. I do have a segment at the very, very end of the presentation today where I'll be taking Q&A specifically. So hopefully I'll be able to go ahead and access the Q&A there then. Okay, perfect. Yeah, Caroline said that she could see it. Perfect. All right, so if you have any questions, go ahead, type them in the Q&A, type them in the chat. I will get to them at the very, very end of the presentation today. And we'll just go ahead and dive right in because time is valuable and I respect all yours. So I wanted to start off today by really emphasizing you guys are an inspiration. And the reason I say that is because it says a lot that you're joining a presentation like this today, especially in the crisis that we're all in right now. Now, I may look a lot younger than I actually am. I'm almost 40. And in my professional career, I've been through two big crises. I'm based out of New York. So the very, very first one that I went through was 9/11. And then, shortly thereafter, we all went through the 2008 financial crisis as well. Now, if there's one thing to always remember, a lot of folks will view times of crises like this as an excuse, where others will view it as an opportunity, right? As an opportunity to do things different and to pivot and to change. And the fact that you guys are all on this presentation today tells me that you are one of these people, right? So many businesses that we now know as being mainstream got their start in 2008, including Airbnb, Groupon, Instagram. These are all businesses that, and companies that are ingrained in our society right now, and they all got their start during the last crisis. So really keep this in the back of your mind as we're going through, the information that I am sharing today, and know that you are in the right place. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I refuse to participate in the recession, which is one of the reasons that I put this training together. So we're going to be diving in deep. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sharing with you 5 mistakes I see business owners make that prevent their growth and keep them working nonstop. So when you're able to implement the solutions for them and do so effectively, you have the opportunity to double your revenue while taking Fridays off in the process, right? So you're effectively accomplishing more, but working less to do it. Now, one thing I would definitely recommend, I do know it's difficult when you're running a business during a session like this. You get phone calls, you get, other distractions. If you can, try to go ahead, put those phones on mute. Try to, silence anything coming up. I will say up front, that I am a single mom. My son is at home. This is our post-COVID world right now. So he may jump in and out, just so that warning's out there. But if you can, hopefully it doesn't prove to be too distracting if that does happen, and we can go ahead and dive into all this great information. So let me first go ahead and share who exactly is this for. Now, my background, I am a business coach, and I'm going to talk a bit more about this shortly in a few slides. But my expertise is primarily in service-related businesses. So I've done a lot with service-related retail, solopreneurs, independent contractors, startups can benefit from a lot of what we're going to be sharing today. So if this is you, you are in the right place. If this doesn't sound like you, you will still get a lot of value out of what we're going to be talking about today. So let's dive into that. So over the next 60 minutes, here's what you can expect. I'm going to be sharing with you what I call the 5 overwhelm culprits. Now, the 5 overwhelm culprits, this is what keeps you working nonstop and keeps you constantly overwhelmed. I very recently gave a TED talk on what these 5 C's were, as I refer to them there. And each one of them is tied to one of the small business owner mistakes that we're going to be talking about in a little bit. Also, for those of you who work with employees, I'm going to be discussing how to find independent and self-sufficient employees, right? So the whole point is we don't want to have employees that we have to babysit. We don't want to have to be doing work for them. So we're going to talk about how to go about finding ones that are independent. We're also going to talk about how to balance your work and your life. For a lot of folks, I know myself included, that one of the reasons that we go into business for ourselves is we want freedom and flexibility to have our lives and lifestyles the way that we want them. And a lot of times we're surprised that it doesn't work out this way all the time, that we end up working for our business instead of our business working for us. So we're going to talk about how to negotiate that balance. Oh, and I got a duplicate slide, sorry about that. We're also going to talk about increasing your productivity. So there is one, what I consider to be an unforgivable mistake, which is going to kill your workflow, in general. And you're going to learn exactly what that is shortly. And lastly, I want to share, how to go about enjoying your business again. I know these are stressful times, with everything going on right now with COVID and the recession and stress and anxiety. And it is possible to enjoy your business even in these trying times. So we're going to share exactly how to go about doing that. So my promise to you by the end of this 60-minute presentation is you're going to have a step-by-step strategy to effectively double your revenue within 6 months. I know it seems like a really, really big thing to promise, but I've done it time and time again with my clients, and I'm going to share with you exactly how we go about doing it. And I also wanted to remind you guys too, you definitely want to stick around to the very, very end, because I'm going to be sharing a resource that's going to help finding which of the 5 overwhelm culprits is your culprit. And I'm also going to be sharing my slides for download at the very, very end. So definitely stick around. All right, so does this sound like you? And when I mention all this too, this can apply to pre-COVID or post-COVID, either one. But a lot of times businesses have been in this situation even before everything had happened. So if your business has plateaued, you find that the results that you're putting into your business aren't matching your efforts, right? That you're spending hours and hours and hours and you aren't getting the results that you want. And as a result, you're so overwhelmed by what's going on right now that you're not enjoying your business. This presentation is for you. So I want you to know, and keep this in the back of your mind as we go through everything that we're talking about today, that there are people out there, even now, with COVID going on, that need what you have to offer, right? So I see so many business owners and I speak to so many people on a regular basis that it's almost like they put everything on hold because they're embarrassed or they feel bad offering something when people have lost their jobs or people have, are essential care workers and are working nonstop, right? People feel bad offering what they have to offer, but the truth is people still need what you have to offer. So you're not doing anybody any kind of service at all by taking your business on pause during this recession right now. What's really important is that we figure out how to pivot what it is we have to offer and tie it to what your customers actually need during this crisis. We're going to talk about exactly how to go ahead and do that. So remember, if this sounds like you, it's not your fault, right? Because the real problem is most people don't know the common mistakes when it comes to, your small business growth. We're going to be talking about that in detail because, again, it's tied to those 5 overwhelm culprits. The good news is if you can address them and you can implement the solutions for them, you have the opportunity to grow your business and be more effective in doing so. So it's taking you less time. So once you stop making these 5 core mistakes, you're going to find increased, reliable, and sustainable revenue. You're going to notice increased freedom and flexibility. You're going to have increased confidence. increased validation because you know that what you're offering is not only being taken advantage of, but you're being rewarded financially by doing it. And lastly, you're going to achieve that balance that you're looking for. So before we all get into that, let me share a little bit about who I am and the work that I do. So my name is Corrie LoGiudice, and I am a New York-based strategist, coach, and professional speaker. And I specifically help business owners reduce their overwhelm. So I've done this for over 15 years. I actually got my start running my family's regional electronics company, where I worked my way from entry level all the way up to senior vice president. And what we were doing during that time frame was, because we were in wholesale distribution, our customers were small local retail shops. And we represented, however, Fortune 200 technology brands. So we had to get really, really creative and really good at figuring out how to position small mom and pop against Fortune 200s, who they were ultimately representing, but in competition with. So that's a little bit about my background. So as I mentioned, I'm a third generation, entrepreneur and former SVP, and I eventually went into business for myself. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about that backstory in a second. I've been featured as a TEDx speaker. I've also been in The Mighty. I've been in Authority magazine. I've been in Girl Boss. So I've received a lot of press for the work that I do. And I love what I do. Every single day I get to show up and help small business owners achieve peak performance and more or less accomplish their dreams. And that's something that's really, really satisfying for me to do. My favorite part about all this, which I really wanted to mention, because some of you may relate to this, or you may have businesses that you either want to transition to this model or may eventually want to get there, is my business as it is today is entirely location independent. So I have experience helping businesses transition to that. So I'm going to share with you a little bit how I discovered the 5 C's. Now, and I'll make sure too, you may have to remind me at the very, very end when we do the Q&A, I can drop a link to the TED Talk. But basically what ended up happening was, several years ago, I was a senior vice president in my family's business, and I was going through a really tough time. So I had become a very newly single mother. My son was only 5 months old. I was in the middle of a divorce, and I was commuting close to 20 hours a week back and forth between my family's business location and where I ended up having to move to be closer to my family so I had help with my son. So in short, the most I was getting to see my son every single day was through my home security camera system. I knew I didn't like it. I knew it wasn't normal, but because of my drive, and I wanted so badly to be a successful entrepreneur, and I wanted, I felt that my family's business was my way to be able to do this, I continued to move forward. So I was in complete overwhelm, but in denial about it because of my drive and my motivation as being one of my strong points, right? So I like to say it's my greatest strength, but it's also my greatest weakness. So having this ridiculous commute and never seeing my son wasn't enough to get me to enact a change in my business and my lifestyle. Ultimately, what ended up happening was I lost my long-term partner to suicide. And having that situation happen completely transformed how I viewed everything in the world. It made me view time differently because ultimately I knew nothing's ever a given. So I wanted to design a lifestyle and a new business that was going to allow me the time that I wanted with my son, with my family, with my loved ones. And ultimately, it meant that I had to leave my family's business to do it, which was extremely difficult. Now, in creating my own business, and how I teach other people to manage their overwhelm, I discovered through everything that I had been through personally that there were 5 key areas of anybody's life and business that, if they're out of alignment, are going to cause you to feel frustrated and overwhelmed. They're really easy to remember. They all begin with a C. And we're going to be sharing what they are today. Now, each one is tied with a mistake that I've noticed time and time again that small business owners make. So I'm going to be sharing with you, number 1, what the 5C is, what that category is. Number 2, what the common mistake is. And then we're also going to be going over what to do instead. So the very first one is clarity. Right? So it's not enough to know what it is you want. You have to know why it is you want it, right? So the mistake that I find most small business owners make is they're entirely focused on the future, right? So they're focused on, you know, what numbers they want to be at, what they want their brand to look like, what the visibility is going to be. You know, they're so focused on, you know, what their company vision is in the next 5 years that they are completely blind to what's going on right in front of them. And this is so important, especially right now as we're going through a crisis, right? 9 times out of 10, when I'm working with a new client, we can identify an opportunity that's directly in front of them that they never would have seen had they not been focused on the present moment and looking at what they have available to them, right? So it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a future vision, but you shouldn't choose to be blind to what's going on right in front of you. So truth is, everything that you need to be able to grow and pivot your business as it is today, you already have right in front of you. You've got your, you know, balance sheets, you've got your P&L, you've got your marketing reporting, you've got your entire customer base as it is right now to be able to pull and ask questions and figure out what it is that they want and how you could be doing things better. Everything you need is already right in front of you. You just need to know where to look and how to capitalize on it. The opportunities are endless. Now, the problem is when you get this wrong, you risk not seeing a return on your investments. So many small business owners that I've worked with in the past, they will, you know, create these comprehensive marketing campaigns, they get them up and running, and then they never check to see what the results were of their campaign, how much money they spent, who they reached, was it the right person, and did they actually end up being a paying customer in the end, right? So by being blind to that, you're not going to see a return on your investment. You're going to risk a competitor coming in and capitalizing on your, you know, lack of action. So for example, if you're not constantly in communication with your existing customer base to know what is or isn't working and what you could be doing better, you more or less leave the door open for somebody else to come in and do it better than you, right? This is how disruption happens. This is how Netflix took over Blockbuster, right? When you think about it. And lastly, it becomes impossible for you to ever feel satisfied with your business the way it is today, because you're constantly focused on, you know, how you want it to be in 5 years. So because it's not that just yet, you're not going to be happy with where you are today. You know, and unfortunately, you know, and I love this quote from Maya Angelou, you know, we are only as blind as we want to be, right? So by not looking at what's right in front of you right now and the resources you have available to you right now, it's really turning a blind eye to what the potential your business has to be effectively, which will ultimately get you to that place that you want to be in 5 years. But that really starts with today, right? So when you get this right, you're going to see increased revenue much faster because you're capitalizing on opportunities that are immediately in front of you. Like I said, with what's going on right now with COVID, there are so many different opportunities out there for you to pivot and change, you know, make a difference. You'll have happier customers because they're going to feel heard. They're going to have their you know, wants and needs addressed, and you're going to be a part of taking, you know, of taking care of that. You'll always stay motivated and be constantly evolving because you're looking at what opportunities you have today and you're focused on today. Every single day you wake up to new opportunities, which is exciting, as opposed to focusing on what you don't already have 5 years in the future. All right, so I'm going to share a really quick case study. So Anna was one of my clients. She was a real estate professional. Hold on one second, I'm just going to advance this. So Anna's a real estate professional, and as we all know, the real estate market is very kind of wide open. You know, at this point, there isn't a lot of niching down, and it's very difficult to compete. There's a lot of realtors out there, especially in the residential space. So when Anna and I first started working together, she was very focused and very intent on wanting to hit a specific number that other real estate agents in competing firms were doing. So her frustration really stemmed from the fact that she's doing all this work and taking all of these actions, but she wasn't having their results, right? So she was constantly in comparison to other people. So the way that we were able to turn this around for her was we immediately started looking at her, we looked at her numbers over the last 365 days was the time frame that we had looked. We looked at who her most profitable clients were, who were the people that she actually enjoyed working with, and we started looking for trends. We also looked at her marketing spend, and we tried to determine what different tactics were literally tied to that most profitable customer that she really wanted to be working with. By doing all of this, Anna identified a very specific niche within her industry, which, in general, real estate, you don't see a lot of niching down, but Anna saw a lot of success by doing that. There's a very, very specific market segment that had a lifestyle need during a certain time period of their lives. And she was able to 100% go all in on marketing just to that specific customer, as well as changing her networking strategy to put her in touch with people who would, give her connections to this customer. And as a result, she doubled her sales within the 6 months that we were working together. And at the end of the year, she was actually awarded as a top performer within her firm. So again, it was looking at the information that was already in front of her instead of comparing herself to other people within the industry who ultimately were working a completely different niche market. So that covers clarity, which is the first C. The second C is confidence, right? So it's no one else's responsibility for your confidence or your team's confidence besides your own. And unfortunately, if you don't get a firm grasp on your confidence, it's going to hold you back. So what mistake is this tied to in the small business arena? It's because most people are taught as small business owners that they should be delegating their weaknesses. And this is not necessarily a smart move, and I'm going to share with you why. So what most people do is they delegate tasks that they don't feel confident doing themselves. So the most common one I hear of on a regular basis is social media, for example. I outsourced it. I don't have to do it because a lot of folks, especially depending on where they are generationally and how long they've been in business, they just don't have a comfort factor with that type of technology, right? So they delegate tasks that they don't feel confident doing themselves. They hire experts and trust them blindly, right? They'll also then wonder why they feel out of control of certain aspects of their business. But the truth is, the reason they don't feel in control is because they blindly outsourced it to somebody else and they're relying on them to have the results. But just because you delegate it doesn't mean you're no longer responsible for the results that it's going to generate for your business, right? So it's so important you have a general understanding of what it is that you're trying to outsource so that you can have some kind of effect on its outcome for your business, right? So what should you be doing instead? You should be educating yourself on whatever this is that you're outsourcing, not with the expectation that you should bring it in-house. Well, yes, it would be more cost-effective probably for you to bring it in-house. That's not a requirement. But it's more for you to build up your confidence on whatever that core, skill is, right? When you do this right, you're going to feel a greater sense of control because you're going to actually know, not only what results it is you need, what the market expectations are, but what steps there are to get there, right? So you could correctly guide people in that direction. You're also going to be able to effectively communicate with the experts, right? So when a lot of times what'll end up happening, and I experienced this because I used to be a graphic designer a long time ago before I went to work for my family and then became a coach. And one of the things that becomes frustrating when you're, an expert in that kind of a niche is you're then having to spend time that you could be spending on delivering the service into educating the customer, right? So it could be, education on the timeline. It could be, mission language. It could be, what do you want your brand to be? There are so many different elements that are tied into even something as simple as graphic design that the less you have to educate your customer on what it is, then the quicker you can produce your results. So by being able to have a kind of general overview of what it is the process is that you're outsourcing, your experts then don't have to be spending the time to educate you on it, which is ultimately going to speed up their timelines and it's going to cost you less money, right? And then, best part is you'd have the ability to bring the processes in-house should you decide you want to. Of course, there's always a benefit to having it outsourced, but I always prefer the opportunity to have an option than be forced, right? So if you don't want to take advantage of this, which is fine, that's ultimately a choice, you're ultimately setting yourself up to be taken advantage of more often. because when you blindly delegate without having knowledge as to, how the skill needs to be applied to your business, again, you are still responsible for it. So you're setting yourself up for people to charge you more than they probably should be, more than the going market rate, for taking longer than it should be taking, simply because you are not in the know as far as what the timeline should be and what the processes should be. So I'm going to share a really quick case study to demonstrate this. So Kelly is a yoga instructor, as well as a blogger and a life coach. And Kelly, her priority when she first started working with me was she wanted to increase her visibility, which a lot of small business owners want to do. She wanted more people in yoga classes, more people on her website so she could sell advertising space, and she wanted more people booked for life coaching. So one option that she had was to go about, outsourcing social media to somebody else to build up her account, because she was ultimately spending a lot of time in the yoga studio and a lot of time with her clients. So that's the easier solution, right? But she decided she wanted to take it on because she wanted full control of the message that was going out, but she wanted to learn the skills to be as effective as possible in social media. So we created a strategy for her that was surrounding why, her mission in her yoga and life coaching business, why she does what she does, ultimately what she's trying to, achieve by offering services to her clients, and why people should be buying from her. And she built out a comprehensive content marketing strategy. And as a result, she, within a month of working together, went from 200 to 2,000 Instagram followers. So she decided not to outsource. She went the more difficult route, but this is ultimately a skill that she now will be able to, as her team grows, be able to take in-house. Or she could eventually decide to outsource it, but she at least knows what the messaging needs to be, and how it needs to look and feel, and what her customers' needs are before she passes that on to someone else. All right, so the third C is community. When I say community, it's the people surrounding you and your working environment, right? So for a small business owner, this is your employees, this is your customers, this is anybody who touches any part of your business that you need their buy-in and their support in order to be successful. Now, the core mistake that most small business owners make when it comes to community is by doing everything in their power to make their employees happy. Now, it's going to sound contradictory, but let me explain. Right, so the mistake is they make everybody happy. They, get foosball tables. They have snacks in the break room. They, don't have difficult conversations with people when they're not hitting their performance numbers because they're afraid of hurting their feelings. They're giving people complete autonomy in their roles without them demonstrating that they deserve it. Right, they're constantly bending over backwards trying to make people happy, and this is a problem. And it's an easy problem to fix, because the solution is to just have standards, right? Because it's no different than, when you're parenting. As an example, kids do much better with rules and guidelines than they do just let off to be working on their own. Any kind of supportive work environment, or when you're in a leadership position, it's the exact same thing. People need to have boundaries and standards. So by having standards, actually I want to go back for a second. It's important that you're clear on why you started your business. What is your mission? What is your ultimate vision for your business? And because when you're clear on this, you can hire people who agree with you and want the same thing, right? People are very purpose-driven in their work. And when you could tie your purpose with your employee's purpose, that creates a very motivated individual who's showing up and representing your business every single day. It's also having a set of processes that work, that's repeatable, that you don't have to be, your employees don't have to take on that stress of trying to figure out the right thing to do all the time and always shooting in the dark, right? They're looking for that leadership. And also it's having expectations on how your customers are, spoken to, how they're communicated to, what level of service are you providing for them? You set that, not your employees. You have to have standards. When you get this wrong, you're losing people's respect, because you're ultimately losing your position as a leader within your organization. And you started your business because you have a specific purpose and a thing that you're trying to accomplish. So it's really up to you to step into that leadership role, right? So you set yourself up to lose people's respect. You set yourself up for people to take advantage of you. Again, it's, that poor performer You're afraid to have the conversation on, why their sales are awful. Ultimately they're taking advantage of the situation because they know you're not going to call them on it and they've got an easy gig, right? So people are going to take advantage. I already said you lose your leadership position, and ultimately you end up wasting time and money, right? Because this is time and money that could be spent on other areas of your business, whether it be, marketing or strategy and other ways that you can effectively grow your business that you're more or less throwing away by letting people take advantage of you and take advantage of your situation. Well, when you get this right, the best part is you have happier employees, because again, people are purpose driven. They want to, thrive in an environment where they're working towards something that they also believe in, right? You create a strong company culture. One thing that I learned from my family's business many years ago, my family's business, their tenure is very long. I think the average employee is 10+ years. And this is due in part due to the strong company culture. We have very specific expectations. And even when other people are doing the hiring for us, they want to make sure that they hire other people that believe and work the same way that they do, right? So you create a strong company culture. People's actions every day are being driven towards the ultimate mission of the company. So again, there's that sense of purpose, there's that satisfaction, feeling like you did a good job when you show up at work. And lastly, you get respect and validation from your customers. Your customers are going to be happier because your employees are happier because everybody understands what standards there are, right? So even in terms of, taking customers as one of your community C's, I work with so many, especially like real estate and other types of service related businesses, where they're afraid to tell the customer they can't take a call on a weekend, or they're afraid to upset somebody that they can't deliver on something for, their work life being out of balance. And the truth is, people respect you more when you put up those boundaries, but they just need to know in advance what, the rules are and what to expect, right? You're going to end up having happier customers when they know what they should be doing. Now, I'm going to share a really quick story. So this isn't a case study because Charlie was never my client, but he was one of my mentors. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with who he is, but he is a billionaire. He's one of the richest people in America. And he built a multi-billion-dollar telecom company that currently has $3 billion cash on hand. So his business is Dish Network. He built it with his wife, Candy, and his friend, Jim. And my family's business has been one of their distributors since they launched. So since back in the 90s, and I grew up having folks like Charlie as my mentor. And Charlie has built a very strong company culture within Dish, even with the thousands of employees that they have. And the reason he's done it is because he set standards. So one great example of this, I love sharing this story, is he was telling us that there was a new executive that was hired within the company, and not even a month into, working for him, had asked for a meeting with Charlie directly because he felt he needed to tell Charlie something that was going on within the company that he felt was wrong. So he gets this meeting set up, and the guy explains to him, listen, I really think your travel department messed something up, because when I went on, a business trip last week, they scheduled me to share a room with this other executive, but I'm a senior vice president. So, with my, rank and my role, I should really be getting my own hotel room. I shouldn't have to be sharing. So I really felt it was important that you know this. Now, Charlie had actually taken this as almost an insult, because to this day, he still shares hotel rooms with other executives as they travel on business. He has done it from the very, very beginning, and it is something that he has, taught his team and has taught his organization that they should be spending his money the same way that he does, right? Because that is how they free up the cash flow to be able to do things like build out, giant telecom networks like what they're doing right now. So long story short, he ended up firing this poor guy, which I feel really bad in hindsight. He ended up firing this poor guy, but he made sure that he utilized this story to, again, re-emphasize to his team, myself included, because I remember being in a meeting when he was sharing it, to emphasize how important it is to share with others what your expectations are. Because had his team done that more effectively to begin with, the guy probably wouldn't have lost his job. So the fourth C is conditioning. When I say conditioning, it's your physical health and wellness. That term, we can't pour from an empty cup. And ultimately, if you are worn down and you're burnt out, it's going to cause you overwhelm and you're not going to get to where you want to go. So the mistake that I see a lot of small business owners make is they're working 60 plus hours a week. This is just common business owner culture, right? 25% of entrepreneurs are logging 60 hours or more a week. Problem with this is you end up having increased mistakes. You end up resenting people because you're expecting too much from them. You have increased stress levels. You have symptoms of clinical depression in some cases. And overall, it's just you're in poor health. And when you're in poor health, you have less energy to pour into your business and to pour into the other people around you in your community, quote unquote, to build up doing what you're doing. So it's a fairly simple solution, but the most successful small business owners don't work themselves to the point of burnout, right? They have that work-life balance that we were talking about before because they prioritize their mental health and wellness instead. And the way that they do this is they set strong work-life boundaries and they stick to them. If they're not going to take calls after 5 o'clock because they're going to spend time with their kids, they're effectively communicating that to everybody so that it happens. And they're also having the same expectation for their employees and their teams, right? They're dedicating time on their actual calendar to work out, to meditate, to do personal development, take classes, do things that ultimately make them a better and more efficient business owner. And again, they're also clearly communicating what their intentions are and why it's important to other people so that they have those people calling them accountable when they fall prey to it. So even for myself included, I'm a total workaholic, which is why I mentioned earlier, with my TED talk, my greatest strength is my greatest weakness. I just don't know when to stop. So for me to help myself manage this, my boyfriend and my family and everybody knows that I need to shut my laptop down at 5. And if I don't, they call me out on it, right? These are ways that you prevent burnout. Now, when you get this right, this is how you get it right. You make sure that you're getting enough sleep. This is going to seem like a really simple checklist, but it's true because it's important. You have to make sure you're getting a really good night's sleep. You have to make sure that you're exercising regularly. You have to be eating nutritious whole foods. And you got to make time for yourself daily. Right now is a really good time to be building this into your current systems because of the quarantine, because we have some extra time right now, because certain businesses are shut down and we've got our kids at home and everything else. Now's a really good time to be focused on this because when you are not taken care of, your business will ultimately suffer. Now, here's a good example. This is my client, Grace. I should say my previous client, Grace. So Grace is a beauty consultant with Mary Kay Cosmetics. And when she first started working with me, she's just like me. Like I said, that very hyper motivated perfectionist, all or nothing, has big goals and will do whatever it takes to get to them. And I was all in helping her achieve that. One day we were getting ready to have a session and we get on the phone, and I do video calls on Zoom just like this. And she was in tears. And, I asked her, I was like, Grace, what's wrong? And she admitted to me, she's like, Corrie, I'm so upset with myself. This entire week just got away from me. I didn't get anything done between our last session and this session that I wanted to get done. She had issues with her, elderly mother, with her kids, with, work quotas and all sorts of stuff. And she broke down. So what did we do to get her out of it? What we did was we effectively made her take, and I held her accountable to it. She had to take one step back in order to take 2 steps forward. So her only goal the following week was to dedicate a minimum of 2 hours a day to something that would make her heart happy. So it didn't even necessarily have to be working out. She had to do something that was for her, that was dedicated for her. So she spent the entire next week going to the beach. She was reading books. She was watching TV shows that she wanted to watch forever that she had kept putting off. And ultimately what ended up happening was when she came out of this, self-induced step back, she had perspective that she really didn't have before because she was constantly pushing forward and she wasn't able to objectively analyze everything going on in her business. So the biggest takeaway for her was she noticed that one project that she was really forcing was not in alignment with what she ultimately wanted to achieve. And she never would have had that perspective did she not have the downtime to kind of sit and meditate and think and just do things for herself. So by taking this almost like this week vacation, She ultimately ended up growing her business as a result immediately after it, because she was able to gain the insight that she needed to really turn it around. So my question for you guys is, are you brave enough to stop taking action in order to prepare yourself for what's soon to come? Because that's really what you're doing when you're resting and recharging, is you're preparing yourself for the next step. All right, so the last C is consistency. And when I say consistency, it's your ability to be able to repeatedly show up and take action. So one thing that I am very, very, very adamant about with anybody in business or any of my coaching clients is, if you want to have an extraordinary life or business, it requires extraordinary action, right? So if you're not putting the action in, you're not going to get the results. And consistency is a core element of this. Now, a big mistake that I see small business owners making when it comes to consistency is they're blindly adopting systems that have worked for other people within their industry without checking first to make sure that it's going to work for them. Right? So you can't adopt other people's systems and expect them to work for you. And this is why, right? So when you're relying on other people's systems, oh, hold on, I want to go back. So, and this is why. So that other people have different habits than you, working habits. They have different employees. They have different overall goals for their business. They have different markets, different products, different services. The lists go on and on and on. So you can't take somebody else's organizational system or even their operating system for their business and apply it to yours and think automatically out of the gate that it's going to work for you. So when you're relying on other people's systems, this is the #1 thing that I found causes procrastination with my clients. So in general, I find, especially for things like social media or some kind of marketing related tactic, that when somebody is avoiding doing it, it's because they don't enjoy the process, right? Or they're not confident about the process, again, tying into that second C. But tasks that you procrastinate on are usually tasks that you don't enjoy. So you're using a system that's not working for you for it. And as a result of not using it, then you're not getting that consistency you need to be able to really see results. You're also missing important details because you're not using a system, because you're procrastinating and not using it. And you also set yourself up to take unnecessary action that isn't in alignment with what it is you want, because you're not doing regular check-ins via a system to know whether you're on track or if you need to pivot. And again, it's harder to pivot. So here's what to do instead. Instead, you need to identify your specific working habits and practice and preferences, and more or less build a custom system that's unique to you. Now, granted, this does take some trial and error to see what works best, but you can't just take somebody else's system ad hoc and plop it into your business and expect it to work. You have to test it, and you should modify it based on what it is that you like. So when you find the right systems for you, ultimately you're going to enjoy using them, right? Which will make you more consistent in the process. You're going to create a better customer experience because you're going to have that regularity and those standards that we talked about earlier, that customers are going to know what to expect, and you're going to deliver upon those promises. You're also going to ultimately save time because you're going to be more effective using a system that works for you. And you're going to see results because you're going to ultimately gain that consistency that you're looking for. So here's a really quick case study. This is Terry. Terry, I had actually worked for when I was in the electronics business. Her family owned a electronics retail store. And when I first started working with her, she was completely overwhelmed to the point that she didn't even know where to start. So she was managing her, company's marketing. She had an entire installation staff that she had to manage their schedules. They had inbound customer calls coming in all the time for sales. And then they had foot traffic in their store because they were a storefront. So she didn't know where to start because she didn't have a system to track what was going on when. So her primary problem was she had read somewhere online that she should be digital in everything. But the way that she worked and her family worked and everybody within her organization, they functioned much better with tactile systems. So when I say tactile, usually that's paper. So one of the things that we did was we created all of her systems to be paper-based. And we even took it a step further where, I encouraged her to visualize, okay, well, you're tracking your marketing. What way makes the most sense for you? And for her, the way she visualized it was she wanted to create a giant calendar on her office wall and be able to put Post-it notes and stickies, and she built out the calendar grid with washi tape. It was actually really pretty when she was done with it. But by creating this physical system that she could take a Post-it note up or down to track where along the process something was, it helped her keep track of knowing what marketing was working for her and what wasn't, which ultimately they then were able to take that funding and pour it into marketing that was working for them, which then scaled their business immediately. And it also helped her to keep better track of her employees and everything else that was going on. So again, we completely took her business's system and just made it tactile the way that they needed to function, and they've been a machine ever since. So we covered the 5 C's, which again, to recap, they were clarity, confidence, community, conditioning, and consistency, right? So following those, here is your step-by-step game plan to effectively double your business. Number 1, you're going to look at data on your most recent sales and spending, right? Because you're going to look again at the opportunities that are immediately in front of you that you can capitalize on today. You're going to learn the skills that you need to feel confident, not that you're relying on other people and outsourcing that, or maybe learning a new skill that could further your business, right? Again, it's up to you to build up that confidence and to build up your team's confidence. You also have to start keeping people accountable. You can't keep people happy. You have to hold standards and keep them accountable. You have to make time for yourself, for your health and your wellness in particular, especially during a crisis like this. Mental health is more important than anything, and you have to make time for it instead of just working 60 hours a week. And you also have to test various organizational systems and processes within your business until you find what works best for you. So when you get this right, you're going to be able to double your revenue because you're going to see opportunities available right in front of you that you can pivot on immediately. Your employees will become independent and self-sufficient, like we had talked about before, because they're going to know what standards are that you're expecting to be met. You're going to have better systems that are going to, be easier for them to follow and know what's going on and create efficiencies for everybody. You'll be able to finally take Fridays off due to creating those systems that we were talking about that are customized to you, having self-sufficient employees, and having better work-life balance by taking care of yourself. You're going to be able to find balance in your work and your life, I mentioned earlier, and ultimately you're going to become more productive than ever. And as a result of all of this, you'll actually enjoy your business again. Now, I wanted to take this a step further and mention I can help you guys with this. So here's how I can help. Over the next week, I've devoted a certain number of slots on my calendar for people to do one-off, private, one-on-one calls to discuss your business, where it is today, where you want it to be, and what's getting in the way. The calls are entirely complimentary. There's no obligation to work with me. And again, it's my way of being able to help you find better clarity on what needs to happen for you to achieve the goals that you're looking to. But there's a catch, it's not for everybody. So let's just go through who's eligible. So there's a short application, and here's basically what I'm looking for. You have to be a small business owner who's bringing in regular business, which I'm assuming that you guys would be if you're working in a co-working space. You have to be bringing in regular revenue, or you could be a startup founder that has a validated offer, right? So you could be in total startup mode, not have sold anything, but if you've got an email list, you got something like that, then it makes sense, we should talk. You also have to be great at what you do and have a track record of helping other people through it. So I'm really not interested in working with, turn and burn kind of fast, what's the right word for it? Fast kind of scam kind of marketing tactics. I want to work with people who really want to make a difference in their communities, and their business is one of the ways of doing it. And most importantly, you have to take 100% responsibility on your action. So even though I can help you find the clarity that you need on what needs to change, as well as help you develop the skills that you need to be able to turn it around, you still have to be the one to take action doing it. So you have to be 100% ready for that. Now, if you meet this criteria, I would love to talk to you about it. And the reason why I'm doing this and why I started my coaching business and I do what I do every single day is because I'm a third generation entrepreneur, and I know what that's awarded my family growing up. The freedom and flexibility we had to be able to travel and spend extra time together. And, it's essentially what I feel the American dream is. A lot of people come here to start that kind of an opportunity. And this is one of the ways that I can help others achieve their goals and their dreams. So if you want me to help you and you think that it could be a good fit, I'm going to invite you to be one of the people that I speak to this month. And to make this easier, hopefully I could do this quick. I'm going to drop a link in the chat window that you could go to sign up. And then immediately after, I'm going to give you guys some resources. Oh, hold on. Again, there's only a few slots per week. All right, so really quick, I'm not seeing anything in the Q&A. The folks from HQ, are you seeing anything that I can't see that I could potentially answer some questions right now? And I'm not seeing anything right now. I'm going to give you guys some resources. Will I leave that up there? Hold on one second. Oh boy, hold on. So the first one, where did that Q&A go? I just lost the window. Oh no. All right, so first one is I'm going to send you a link to my Overwhelm Culprit quiz. All right, so the Overwhelm Culprit quiz, what it does is it takes 3 minutes and you answer some questions and it tells you which of those 5 C's is ultimately holding you back. So whether it's your lack of clarity, whether it's your community not supporting you, whether it's the fact that you overwork. And this is one of the quickest ways to be able to tell which of the 5 C's. And then I'm also going to drop you guys a link to my Dropbox real quick, so you can have the slides. But I can't access my Dropbox right now. Hold on one second. I don't know why it's not opening. Sorry, guys. Let's see. Okay. I'll give you a link to the slides. Computer's acting all wonky. Copy link. Sorry for the delay on this. There we go. All right, great. And there's no questions? It doesn't look like we do have any. All right, great. So if there are no questions, you can definitely reach me at any time. I'm going to drop my email too. And my email, and then you can find me anywhere on social media. I am Corrie Lo on every single platform. I would absolutely love to connect with you on there, learn more about your businesses, and help out the best way I can. So hopefully everybody found some value in what I shared today, and you learned a little something. And I hope everybody has a great week.